Welcome back, my friends, to the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I am your host, Wilk Wilkinson, your blue-collar sage, calming outrage and helping to navigate a world divided by fog and those who would spread that fear, outrage, and grievance. Each week, I'm sharing stories from my path and using the power of conversation and collaboration with my many great guests. Together, we chart a course toward understanding, bridging divides, and fostering a community where wisdom prevails over discord. Friends, it really is about bettering the world one attitude at a time. We did not create the hate, but together we can derate the hate. The only good thing about a bad attitude is we have the ability as individuals to change it. For me, it starts with gratitude and personal accountability. I am so incredibly grateful that you have taken the time to join me for another powerful DTH episode. Please remember to subscribe and share the DTH podcast with your network of friends. If you would like to support the show, check out the Support Us page on the D-Rate the Hate website. With that, my friends, let's get to it. Today's episode is part of our ProHuman Foundation Board of Advisors series, where we have been highlighting voices committed to promoting our shared humanity, open dialogue, and diverse perspectives. My guest today is someone who embodies those values in her work and advocacy. Rosie Kay is an internationally renowned dancer and choreographer whose career has taken her across the world using the power of movement to explore deep societal issues. She's the founder of K2CO and Freedom in the Arts, a vital organization dedicated to protecting artistic freedom and defending artists against cancel culture. Rosie is also a fellow board advisor for the ProHuman Foundation, where we work alongside other incredible thought leaders to push back against the growing culture of division. Her own journey in the arts has come with its challenges, particularly as political ideologies and conformity have taken hold in creative spaces. She's been at the center of debates on gender ideology, free expression, and the role of self-discipline in the arts, and today we're diving into all of it. We are going to explore how self-censorship is creeping into the arts, why gender ideology is impacting women's rights in spaces, and why open debate is essential for understanding one another. Rosie's perspective is a powerful reminder that courage, resilience, and a return to shared humanity are more important than ever. So whether you're an artist, a free speech advocate, or just someone who believes in the power of honest conversation, you will not want to miss this one. Let's get into it with my new friend, Rosie Kay. Here we go. Rosie Kay, thank you so much for joining me on the D-Rate the Hate podcast today. I do appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've been trying to get together here for a little while. The time zone thing is obviously been a challenge. You being in Britain, me being here in the United States, Central Time Zone. And then to complicate things further, we got the daylight savings time and then technical issues. But you know what? We're here. It's awesome. Fantastic.
We're here.
We are here. Rosie, so like I said, incredibly grateful to have you join me here on the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I've been looking at the work that you're doing. This is obviously well, maybe obvious to you and I, but maybe not so obvious to the DTH listeners. This is a part of a bigger series that I've been doing with the Board of Advisors from the ProHuman Foundation, and of which you are a part of as well. And so this is fantastic. This is fantastic. The work that you've been doing is the work that you've been doing in this space of whether it be censorship in the arts or gender ideology and how those two things relate could not be more important right now. Not just here in the United States. Obviously, it's a global issue, as you can attest to being an artist in the UK. So Rosie, let's start there. Why don't you tell the DTH listeners a little bit about your work as a dancer, as a choreographer, and what you started to see as a problem in that space in the UK as you were doing the work that you were doing.
Yeah, so I've been so lucky to spend my life in dance. It's a totally beautiful, amazing form which I absolutely love and adore. But it's not easy. It's not an easy choice either to train to become a professional dancer, or as I did, to switch to becoming a choreographer. It's a Cinderella of the arts forms. It's less funded. It's quite expensive to make. It seems like people kind of feel like they don't get it. And I've always been bowled over by the power and the beauty of dance, and that dance can have something really important to say about the times we live in. So my heroes and heroines were people like Martha Graham from the US, people like Pina Bausch in Europe, women who really broke the mold and made work about the times they live in, and that tells you something more than just me standing up and saying it. So that's sort of my where I'm coming from as an artist. I danced all over the world. I was lucky to, and then I realized that I really wanted to make my own dances. I love the fact that you can combine like history and art and music and theory and philosophy and dance and put it on stage and affect audiences and affect them. It's not just a visual thing. I think dance really kind of connects emotionally with people. It's not just our bodies. We're not just athletes. We're really experts in dealing with human emotion and how it mutates and transforms and ultimately can be cathartic through movement. So I'd always thought, well, if I was going to be an artist, and it's really difficult and it's really hard to earn money or make money, I'd better do it properly. And I would choose subject matter that I found quite scary. And I started to develop that really into a sort of, I guess, like a brand, I suppose, but I was more than that. I was constantly looking for things that no one else was looking at. I was interested when I'd sort of feel when things were building in society. I could sort of pick up the zeitgeist a little bit sooner than other artists, I felt. And artists are kind of tend to be a little bit ahead anyway. So, for example, I trained with the army, with an infantry battalion, looking at how the body trains for war. And that was just before we went really heavy in with the US into Afghanistan. And so the soldiers that I was training with had just come back from Iraq. They were pre-deployment training. They went then off to Afghanistan. And it was kind of the worst period of injury and death. And so people I met and knew personally were coming back with life-changing injuries. And so all this experience of like training with them, going to the hospitals to visit people, looking at the rehabilitation of soldiers. So these are really young, fit, mostly men, but, a few women as well, getting these kind of big, double, triple amputations, and they're in their 20s and they've got their lives ahead of them. How do they deal with this new body, with this new way to kind of live their lives? So I made a show about that, and I suppose, and that was back in 2010, and that was like my first inkling that, you're not supposed to look at subject matters like this, and if you do, there's only one correct political viewpoint, which I didn't really think was very complex. Like, war is bad. Well, I know war is bad, but it's happening. So can we look at it?
So you were getting pushback, right? First of all, let me just compliment you. I love the idea that you're kind of stepping outside your own comfort zone. You're wanting to portray something that made you uncomfortable, but take that and move that into the arts and show that to other people. That is courageous in and of itself, and I love it. But then let me get this straight. So then you started receiving pushback about the message that you were trying to show other people this thing that obviously was outside of your comfort zone, and because you weren't portraying the message in the, I guess, toe the line kind of way, you started receiving pushback for that.
That's right. Yeah. And this is quite a while back. This is 15 years ago. So that really shocked me, actually. I remember phoning. I'd heard that a really important producer had said that my work was disgusting, and I didn't know what she meant. And I wonder if it was because I portrayed somebody as a double amputee. And so I phoned her up and I said, "Do you I knew she wasn't going to book my work and she wasn't going to promote me anymore. And she had supported me in the past. So I knew that was burnt. But I wanted to understand what I'd seen and who I'd talked to in the research I had. And also why some of these stories were not coming into the mainstream media. The government was putting a kind of like delay on some of the injury figures in this country, and these are things that you only know if you know this stuff.
Sure.
And I suppose that was when I first started to look behind the veil in terms of like the information that both the general public is getting, but also the way that the arts were starting to conform together to say we have one viewpoint and one viewpoint only. And to me, that seemed the antithesis of an art making.
The antithesis of art. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that makes no sense.
So I guess from that point onwards, maybe somebody had put a little mark against my name, because I kept going. I looked at religion and the body and how we evoke spiritual states through our bodies. I then looked at, I tried to look at politics, and I ended up looking at conspiracy theory. And I was saying back in 2017, this is a huge phenomenon and it's going to affect everything. And I did it through the medium of like pop videos and how this symbolic messaging was coming through that kids and teenagers were picking up and talking about. At that point, it was the Illuminati. But I was saying these young people, they're not believing anymore. They both believe and they don't believe. And they're getting other messages. There's a vacuum being formed, a political vacuum that other people are going to come into. So again, I was described by the Times of England, of London, as bonkers. But the FT, the Financial Times, did say Rosie's onto something. There is something really shifting in our culture. And of course, that was just around the time that you had your 2016 elections. So, I was kind of picking up that certain things were not okay. And like belief in what reality is was changing. And the arts were really, really doing the opposite. The arts were becoming, like I said, quite conformist, very much the same, very much selling a brand. And I was against that. So I walked into the gender identity debate going, but hang on, I'm a woman, I've got a stake in this. Every human on this planet has come from a woman. We all know what a woman is, we all know what a mother is. And I was quite a new mum, and I was very concerned about the safeguarding of children and the messages that children get.
Sure.
I'm an artist, I'm quite liberal, like old school liberal, but I understand the difference between, I suppose, civil rights and safeguarding. These are different things. There's a times and places, and there are children and there are adults, and there are reasons for that. And there are sexes, there are male and females.
Sure.
And sometimes, it doesn't matter, and sometimes it does. And when it does matter, it matters hugely. And that's to do with women's privacy, safety, and dignity.
Yep.
So I could see this kind of, I saw it coming up actually through looking at conspiracy theory and the whole transhumanism argument. But it did seem like it was quite an online argument. Then we had the big test case in the UK with Maya Forstater, who won eventually on appeal that the right to say that men and women are real is worthy of respect in a democratic society. And but so it started.
Before we go too deep into the gender ideology and the women's rights thing and the understanding what a woman is, which I think is incredibly important. We definitely need to tie into that a little bit more. But before we do that, I want to get just a touch deeper into the whole arts being a way of expressing ourselves, and then all of a sudden you see, as somebody who has come up as an artist, you see this conformist thing starting. I can imagine somebody who's devoted their life to a particular thing, and part of the reason, like you said, you're an old school liberal. Part of the reason that you've done this and you got into the arts was to be able to express yourself and express yourself freely. Other artists I've known have done the same thing, right? They love the arts because they can actually get out there and express themselves and do things to really, show different perspectives on things and just true open free expression. But this is one of those things that I don't think enough is paid attention to right now, just because when I see some of the stuff now that is considered art, you know, art's always been for us people that aren't really artsy folk. It's always been kind of this strange thing, right? Because to try and interpret things is sometimes a stretch. Sometimes it takes some mental gymnastics to really get some of the things that are happening in art. But when I see some of the things that have happened in art in recent years, like I don't know, like a golden toilet, or I that's like art. That's it's a weird other thing. But I see some of this stuff being it's portrayed as thinking outside the box, but yet it is conformist with that certain way of thinking, right? So dive into that a little bit for me. Dive into that a little bit deeper for me, Rosie. The idea that you watched the arts that you loved so much and that you got in to be able to express yourself. And how did that, I guess, make you feel as somebody who, or when you started to see it becoming a more of a total line conformist type of environment?
So I think the those of us that have, say, spent our lives dedicating ourselves to whichever art form maybe we don't talk about enough is the fact that there's a lot of self-discipline along with the self-expression. So I think it's really interesting what you're saying around freedom of expression, which is something like I really do believe in. But I think anybody that's sort of dedicated their life to an artistic profession would counter that with the huge amounts of self-discipline required in order to master your art form. And maybe we don't talk about that enough, and that it isn't just some unfettered kind of, hey, look at me, I can do anything, you have to listen to me, and, and I can do whatever I want, and it's all inclusive. No, like artists have to spend a lot of time mastering, first of all, their art form, then the individual like technique of it. You have to understand the history of your art form and your discipline, and then you have to learn the rules to break the rules, and then you actually have to find something that you have to say, and you have to really almost, I would say, like go into like your own world slightly and not worry about what anyone else is going to think about it. You have to really kind of like create your own world in order to say it. Sure. And then at the end point, you present it to the public. And at that point, the public can decide whether it's great or whether it's absolutely rubbish. And you have to take that criticism. Things have really changed, I think, in that kind of relationship between like the privacy of the artist, the discipline of the artist, and then the public sort of sharing of the art. And they've all got blurred now. I think this has been happening for quite a long time. Now, we could philosophically blame the postmodernists for kind of like deconstructing everything. And that really happened from the sort of turn of the 20th century onwards. Sure. But let's say just in the past, say 20, 30 years, what became really clear to me was that a new level of administrator, bureaucrat, and manager entered the arts. Now, they've got a great job because they have all the money, all the power, all the privileges of like salaries, pensions, holiday pay, but none of the risk. So the artist ends up having to do all the work, all the kind of discipline, all the thinking, takes all of the risk, but gets none of the benefits, and basically has to go sort of cap in hand at each point to try and get those little bits, those trickles of money to try and put together, especially in my art form, and it's quite an expensive art form. I have to pay people to be in the studio with me all the time. I can't just paint, paint's expensive. Sure. Yeah. So that group of people that used to be absolutely passionate about the arts became professionalized through different degree systems. And now they soak up a large majority of any of the arts funding of any country. And they're the gatekeepers, they're professionalized. I'm not sure they like the arts. I don't think they like artists. And what's the most risky thing you can do? Make art. So they're also very risk averse. Now,
and how much does that lead to? I don't mean to interrupt, but how much does that lead to self-censorship, right? And self-censorship in the arts is the antithesis of art. I mean, that's.
I'd say like we're now in the end process of that. So that's self-censorship, yes. But there's just one step I was going to say along the way. So that group of, say, arts management, they all started to become very politically aligned. And exactly. And so it one would say it was left, or perhaps even far left. I mean, I'm kind of not really sure about these kind of left and right divisions really anymore, but it certainly had an element of sort of like control, conformity, risk aversion. And I think that then builds into, now you can't always blame the artists. There are artists that are believers in this ideology, but also I don't think you could find an application form that doesn't say we want you to apply for money that demonstrates how you're sustainable and environmentally responsible and how you are inclusive and diverse in your practice. So there isn't one thing that you could ask to get money for that you don't have to play the game. You have to. Okay. And so these sort of rules are being imposed on artists. So what artists do and don't say, first of all, I think it was incentivized. Now I think because there's been high profile cases like mine in the arts where people have been punished for speaking the truth, artists now are really terrified. I mean, I've worked with a lot of artists, and one described it as an atmosphere of fear and loathing. So it's constant fear that you'll be attacked, that you'll be targeted, that there'll be allegations made against you. And there's a loathing because it's a horrible place to work. And you also, if you have any integrity, you loathe yourself if you're not doing something about it.
I can only imagine. Now, instead of being this free and openly expressive artist who's doing what I love and conveying the messages that I believe as a person, now all of a sudden I'm stuck in the realm of politics, in the realm of ideology. I have to conform, which to me, in my way of thinking, art is the greatest way to be a nonconformist, but I have to conform if I'm going to do anything that people are going to ultimately see. That is an ugly pair. The loathing, self-loathing. I can only imagine what that must feel like. Yeah,
I mean, I think if you can't speak freely, you know that you're compromising yourself because you're just going along with something that you know to be wrong. I think a little bit something inside of you dies, and that thing inside of you is also the kind of the root and the well of your creativity. So it's something that needs to be treasured and looked after. And I think it's very hard. Like, I've been very, very much publicly attacked and sort of bullied and harassed, but I kind of feel all right inside, you know, like
because you're still you.
I'm still me. I have to, take time out. I have to think about it. You asked me how it makes me feel, and I think really weirdly I've ended up feeling like I'm a rebel when I never set out really to be a rebel. I wanted to challenge. I'm quite mischievous. I don't like sort of just joining in, on everything. Right. I like. I'm a choreographer. I look at everything. I watch everything, and I think about it. Why? But simply by holding on to that, that's now made me quite a rebel in the arts world.
Wild how that has played out, right, Rosie? Who would have thought that things would have come so far that now artists and people who are just trying to express themselves have to conform, and those that never intended to be a rebel, or now basically this rebel type figure. So let's transition that a little bit into, well, transition might be a pun in this sense, but transition that into what we see so much of nowadays. I don't pretend to know how much of it's going on in the UK. I suspect it's quite a bit, maybe even more than here, but something that has happened in recent years, say the last, 6, 8, maybe even 10 years, but the whole trans thing in sports and women not being able to kind of effectively do their thing in women-only spaces, and trans women in women's sports, and how that, because I know that this is a touch point for you that I've seen you write about. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, I suppose it's sort of coming at it in two ways. One was those extremes of, like, if you take away the word woman's meaning in law, that it's sex-based, then woman no longer means anything. It means not non-sex. It means it could be either sex, basically. Oh, sure. And that has huge implications in those places that really matter. I think sports is a really great example that people can really see that. But it's also things like women in prison are now imprisoned with men, hospitals, kind of just general privacy, toilets, changing rooms, places where women are vulnerable. And we know the statistics about any man that we don't know can be a potential threat. But actually, I think the new stats show that men who identify as women are actually even of higher risk than just men in general. So there's that side to it. And that, I think, is probably like the political side of the debate that I feel strongly, just as a woman in the world who had felt up until very recently that I was respected and had a say in the society that I live in and that my child is growing up in. This was an important definition, and one not to just be thrown away lightly, but to at least be properly debated and for the consequences to be thought through. I suppose the other side I'm looking at it from is to do with the body and the soul. Actually, my job is the medium is the body, but like, as I said at the start, it's so much more to me, dance. It's so much more. It does seem to be something about connecting the body, the mind, and the spirit. And I mean that in the widest term rather than just a religious term. But it seems that it taps into, both by doing dance, it enlivens us, it tells us things, it seems to mess up past, present and future, but also by watching dance, it gives us huge pleasure and interesting information that we wouldn't pick up otherwise. And it did seem to me that this whole trans agenda and transhumanist sort of approach is all about sort of carving ourselves up into what the activists would call meat sacks, and sort of like almost potato head style genitals that you can just chop off your genitals and put some new ones in, or the fact that your endocrinal system is actually integrated not just with your sex characteristics, but actually is integral to your brain development as an adolescent. So if you give puberty blockers or wrong sex hormones to children or teenagers, not only are you changing their bodies and physiologies forever, it is irreversible, you're actually also changing huge processes in their brain. So, for example, I think we know that if you give puberty blockers too young, they will never have a fulfilling sex life, they will never orgasm. But there's more to it than that. They also won't be able to experience great pleasure from things like works of art. It seems to thwart those kind of higher brain sort of functions that mean that we can be really, really well-functioning adult human beings. And our appreciation of is something that actually takes quite a few years for us to develop. If you just think about how your child enjoys art to your teenager to an adult, there is a big transformation, and that is to do with how hormones affect our brains. So for me, there was something just horrific about not being like, I'm sorry, my body can be a nightmare to me. You know, there's no question. I've struggled with my body, with my weight, with all these things, but it is the only body I've got, and I have to take care of it. To think that you just don't care for your body at all, but then also that your whole system could be manipulated and messed around is really scary.
Absolutely scary. Absolutely scary. Yeah, I've never been one, Rosie, who has bought into the idea that we can just take some drugs, we can chop off this body part or that body part, or manipulate this and that and make ourselves into something else. I personally am one who believes there are two sexes, and God does not make mistakes, in the sense that he does not put a woman in a man's body or a man in a woman's body. I empathize greatly with all those who somehow have reached a point where they think they need to medically alter themselves to do that. But then I also, on the other side, and this is where, my derate the hate message lies in this, is I greatly empathize with women who want women's only spaces. I greatly empathize with men or women who are same-sex attracted and want that part of their life to remain, for them. And then this whole thing to pretend that these are monolithic groups, but then to take that into what you're saying within the arts, and how these things translate into again, what we were talking about earlier, towing the line, must conform to this way of thinking, and just assume that because this is the way that the power structures want us to believe today, this is the message that we're going with. And if you step outside of that construct, we are going to destroy you. Yeah. And it is horrific. And I mean, it is horrific. I would say it's horrific in any industry, but I imagine it's got again, when your craft, when your thing is producing art, and that is such a message that is such a hot button issue, a hot point, but you in your soul and your understanding of the physical part of our body, the soul, the everything else, when all of that stands in contrast to you and who you are, people often discount how that could affect you. So, that is where this gets lost so often, Rosie, in things is they're like, oh, well, we've got to do this for this particular person. And that it's a very, very, very small part of the human population that is afflicted with, whether somebody wants to call it gender dysphoria or whatever. And they're like, well, this is what we've got to do because this is what's best for these people, which I believe is an opinion. I believe it's wrong, but this is what we have to do for this subset of people. And now we're going to make the other 99 point whatever % of the population conform to it. Well, what does that do to everybody else who then is, now I have to step outside of what my mind, body, and soul is telling me to do. And especially in your case as an artist who's trying to put together these beautiful works of art, and now you're having to, again, step outside of what you believe to be accurate and do something that is not in line with your morals, your way of thinking. What does that do for somebody like you?
Goodness. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I grew up in the UK in the 80s. I was born in the sort of mid-70s, and through the 80s we had so many gender non-conforming amazing artists. Whether you look at sort of like the New Romantics and men wearing makeup and long hair, and Annie Lennox looking very androgynous, there's just countless incredible artists that played with what we old school feminists would call gender, like the appearance of sex. And I think also, and I think also sort of I grew up, in a generation, I was part of the kind of acid house and house culture where men and women danced together. There was, white, black, brown people. There was it felt like we were dancing out any racism, where homosexuality was really accepted, and gay and lesbian friends, and we went to gay clubs and we all danced together, so I really, maybe we were the last hippies on earth, but we, the Generation X, we really saw that and we felt like things were going in the right direction. So this whole idea, and I certainly never met anyone that was trans all through my sort of teens, 20s, 30s. And I think we've really got to sort of look at trans and how it is a construction. Now, I do think that, we can afflict ourselves with all sorts of strange disorders with ourselves. And the history of psychiatry will show you that, the trends, the fads, women having their wombs removed for hysteria in the sort of 19th century. I think trans is a construct, and it's being manipulated and sold to people. And part of that whole manipulation of people is the kind of do not question it, do not debate. So that has been part of the strategy for whoever that be, the pharmaceuticals or companies or whoever has done it. I think what's shocked me the most around the trans debate is the fact that it's gone into things like medicine and the law without any evidence. And that really, really shocks me. The arts, almost, I'm kind of like, well, yeah, we're kind of a bit nuts, really, anyway, like we make stuff up, going back to that free expression. But actually what's really disgusting is what it's allowed is a culture of bullying and harassment and madness, so that you, the one that is not mad, starts to think that you are the mad one because everyone else is telling you you're mad, you're the bigot, and so you get those accusations. That's really shocking, because you literally, when this first happened to me, I was like, maybe I have gone mad. Maybe I've missed something. Maybe I'm a really hateful person. Then you have to go away and really think about it. Fortunately, I've got a very good family, and just go, no, I am actually right about this. I'm not right about a lot of things, but I am right about this. But I guess what then happens when you have that kind of culture of conformity, especially in the arts, and you're a little bit vulnerable, like whether you're in, whether you're out, whether you're fashionable or not. What you end up with, if you do not conform, is this real culture of hostility. And that's awful. That's just awful. Worst playground behaviour, but from adults.
Yeah. So many of these things have we've unfortunately, that is the age that we are living in nowadays, this age of outrage, the constant pressuring of those who are perpetually offended to make people conform to their way of thinking, because somehow we've reached a point where we are not allowed to offend, and people have taken this whole thing of adverse opinions, ideas that are outside of our own comfort zone are now offensive, and if it offends me, you're not allowed to speak about it. It is awful. It's awful in the arts. It's awful in business. It's awful in politics. It's awful for humanity in general, in my opinion. I think it's awful. Okay, I know we've gone over our time, but I want to take a little bit. This conversation is amazing, and I'm loving it. But we do have to get wrapping up here pretty quick. Rosie, so the ProHuman Foundation, our work with the ProHuman Foundation, the idea that we are all human beings and we have the same needs, desires, that pro-human message is so incredibly important. How did you come to be part of the ProHuman Foundation Board of Advisors? And if you have a message that you want to really get out there as one of those advisors, what is that message, Rosie Kay?
Well, when I got kind of cancelled or attempted cancelled just over 3 years ago, and actually one of the first people that got in touch was Bion, and at that time he was still part of FAIR, and then sort of through conversations with him helped set up FAIR in the Arts, and I was just really struck with him and his integrity and what he was trying to do and how he was setting out to do it. And so when the ProHuman Foundation was set up, along with Laurie, I just was like, I love your message. I see what you're doing. And, if I can be of any help, then please let me know. I suppose even by that time, by ProHuman, I'd set up something called Freedom in the Arts. So I was starting to also, I would never have thought of this 3 years ago, that I'd be sort of in this same territory. But it's nobody else was helping the arts, and the arts, particularly artists, are particularly vulnerable. So I was really delighted that we could sort of start to pair up with really international networks now of people, because we all learn from each other. Yes, we've got different funding, we've got different political setups, but some of the tactics and ways that we need to get our message across are really similar. So I was delighted to form part of this. And I suppose my message, it's difficult actually. I should think about that really. My wider message is really see, this is it. I was about to say a return, but I worry now. I worry that we're past the point of return. I used to feel like, hang on, if we just kind of stop and, we ground ourselves and we remember, shared humanity, it's all going to be okay again. But I kind of think maybe we've gone a little bit past that. And in some ways, we need to find new ways, and we might need to set up new institutions and organisations like we already have, and get our message that it's okay to have different views, different approaches, different beliefs. It's absolutely okay. And maybe we're going to have to learn to teach each other how to discuss, debate, withstand also different ideas that we build. Yeah, we build resilient humans who are open and curious, but also know who they are as well. Maybe there's something missing in this equation right now.
Yeah, it is absolutely okay for us to have differing opinions and differing ideas and different ideologies. And you are absolutely right. We do need to, as a human race, in our societies, in our communities, in the things that we do, we do need to, again, realize how important it is to withstand the idea that others will have different viewpoints than us, but we have to be able to discuss those in a civil and non-contentious way if we are to grow as a human race, right? I love that message. I think you are right on track. It is very much in line with my way of thinking and why I do the work that I do here on the Derate the Hate podcast. Rosie Kay, absolutely incredible conversation. I love the work that you're doing. I hope we can do this again. And yeah, this is beautiful. Thank you so much, Rosie Kay.
Thank you, Wilk. Really enjoyed it.
Friends, if there's anything in this episode that provided exceptional value to you, please make sure to hit that share button. Share it with your friends, share it far and wide. And of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe right from our website so you can get the Derate the Hate podcast sent to your email inbox every week. So this is Wilk wrapping up for the week, saying get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything that you've got, and remember it's up to you to make each and every day the day that you want it to be. If there is something that you would like to share with me, you can catch me on most social media platforms, or you can email me directly, wilk@wilksworld.com. With that, my friends, I am going to back on out of here, and we will catch you next week. Take care.